Do a little project intro on this 1974 Olds Cutlass. I had one that was a little bit better and I got in an accident with it. And after the accident I bought this because it was super cheap and I could put all my parts in it and keep my drivetrain rolling. Well, years later I still have it, unfortunately. This car is a complete rust out, and I think like a high schooler did it in like a tech class, did all the body work to it. And a lot of it's coming undone. And actually one of the quarters was replaced on it. There used to be a big spoiler back here. And the body lines aren't where they're supposed to be, at least not on the 1/4. And there's a sunroof cut into it. And numerous other things. I had put the 442 hood on it at one point. I had a few of these cars. You can see the carbs off right now. We're using that on the Javelin. We actually have a different carb on the Javelin. And the goal here is to get this car back on the road. So the first thing we have to do is put a bumper on it and then get the carb on it. And we're balls deep in a bumper rebuild already. And we're going to lighten it up because it was super heavy. It had to be probably in the neighborhood of 150 pounds, maybe more. And then we'll get the carb back on this 455 here. And this 455 is warmed over pretty good and it's super strong. So we should get some good driving videos out of this car once we get it back on the road. Once we start to dial it in, we're going to do some body work to this and just get the whole thing into primer black. And we're going to do that alongside an AMX project that's coming up. I got a bunch of parts for the car, like a fender. You see that fender is coming undone. A lot of miscellaneous stuff, and I just want to get it out of my yard and out of my house and finish the project and be done with it. The original plan was to buy a 73 because they have lighter bumpers. I'm just tired of spending money on these things, so this is going to be a project on the super cheap. I took a ratcheting shifter, I think that might have been out of a Grand Prix, and put it in here. Works fabulous. The trunkener is completely gone. We'll get to that another day though. I jokingly put this on the back to emulate the Mad Max car in the original movie. It's one of my favorite movies as a kid. It really got me into cars, and really the whole series was pretty good. Anyway, there'll be a bunch of videos in this car through the course of the winter, and the tail half of this video, I got some footage of the start on these bumpers, and I'll throw it in there. Paul's got some words in the bumper and ideas that he wants to do to the car. A car like this is really perfect for customizing because it isn't worth anything and it never will be worth anything. But I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, so I got some different ideas of just to get it back into working condition. We'll see where it goes. Enjoy the rest of the video.
Once in a while, you'll be hanging around with somebody that has a vehicle that you'd call a hoopty, or it's so far gone it isn't worth putting money into it. But this thing goes like a bat out of hell. It's got a 455. It's pretty strong. You look at it, it's such a heavy vehicle, you think, oh, how could that thing go? But I have a 74 Chevelle Laguna. A lot of my friends that grew up back in the day, we all had those 70s cars. When you talk about going out on the highway and ride, man, they were nice. They had a full frame. So this car with that 455 Olds makes its power at a really, lower RPM and gobs of torque. And with this heavy bumper, this is one all gutted out. This one, I couldn't even lift if I even tried. My back would go out. When he took that out, when he took it off and took it out on the road, the acceleration made the front end come up a lot faster. And if we get the battery in the trunk, we're going to try eliminating as much weight as possible. It's been done on other, Hot Rod Magazine took a big old boat and they just started cutting the thing down, and they were at the drag strip, and as they just eliminated weight, you could see how the quarter-mile times got smaller and smaller. Well, it makes sense. You're not hauling all this extra weight around. So we're going to try getting this vehicle where it would be illegal and you wouldn't be hassled by the cops. in the state that we're in, we gotta have a license plate in the front, you gotta have a bumper. Like I said, when you drive a project that's not legal, it's like every time you pass a cop, you're just hoping that he's not gonna check you out and pull you over and you just don't feel comfortable. You wanna take all the situations out that a cop could utilize to pull you over and eliminate them. So this bumper is like 3/16 steel and you got the chrome face. That's heavy enough as it is, you know, we're talking this car is wide, it's like 5 feet wide, and then there's another I-beam that they clamped them together, then it's got these brackets, and then it's got these heavy shocks that go into the frame horns, so that when you hit, it would go doo-doo. A lot of people would get in accidents and you didn't think anything was wrong, but once those shocks were impacted, they always said you were supposed to change them out, but a lot of people did. Next time you got in an accident, you know, they just went in real quick. But they were still such heavy cars, you could be out of control, go through a ditch, come out of the ditch, and the car still looks straight. You do that with a little Toyota Camry now, and you know, it's tweaked. These things are real sturdy vehicles, and a lot of them got used up in the demo derbies, or you know, like dirt track cars, because they were real heavy duty. Another thing that you younger people that didn't grow up with this stuff that won't ever realize it unless you get a ride in an old car. When you drove these old cars that were really long wheelbase, and a lot of them didn't handle very well, like the 65 to 67 Chevelle, even all the way up to 69s, they were just hit and miss. They worked on a suspension and they'd have the production suspension for the mass population, and then when they wanted SS version, you know, they just put stiffer springs or sway bars, and they had test drivers that actually went around a track and then they'd make a tweak to it. In 1970, they had computers that would, you could put in all the parameters of that car, tell what they want to get out of it, and these computers would design the suspension points and the thickness of the sway bar and stuff. When you had these long cars like this and you went around a corner, the tail end would hang out, you'd be cross-turned, you felt like you were Joe Racer. And then as cars got shorter and shorter, like little Mustangs, you go around a corner and you hang the tail end out, and a lot of times it just swings you right around. Well, with these, with the longer wheelbase, you had time to bring it back into control, and you'd fishtail it one way and fishtail it the other way. And it felt really cool. And they just didn't react as well because the earlier cars were about 800 pounds lighter, and the engines made twice as much horsepower. Once we went into this era, the emission controls made the motors, you know, all, you know, a strong one was like 200 horsepower, where the other, you know, previous cars were 400 horsepower. So you had to strip all that stuff off, and then all of a sudden the laws changed, and you had to meet emission controls, and most guys just tossed that stuff. And now, all of a sudden they were nervous, like, what the hell am I gonna do? I gotta relicense this thing, and they weren't legal for the road. Here's a piece that goes inside the bumper. The bumper is a chrome skin that's 3/16 thick. And then you got this thing. Now what you have in cars is a molded plastic front fascia, and behind it is like egg crate plastic or foam, like a kid's bicycle helmet that absorbs energy. And they're made for one impact, and after that, you know, you can take that off, you can pop the dent out of the fascia, and then you're supposed to replace that egg crate in the background so that if you get another accident, it's ready to do its job. They've eliminated all the metal and chrome, trying to make the car lighter, and chrome's just expensive and it pollutes the atmosphere. You know, they got They use cyanide and stuff when they use chrome. But back in the day, the way they protected you was just massive iron. The heavier you make the car, the more inertia it has, and then more damage happens. Everybody always used to think, I'd rather be in the bigger car, so when you get an accident, you got the advantage when you crash into the other guy. So there's two ways you could do this. You can fabricate pieces of metal that connect from the top to here, but this is already form made. He's alleviating a lot of weight, and he's going to have a little bit more protection if he has like horns that go from the front of the frame rail out, and this is already made, and then we'll attach it. That's no fabrication, just cutting off as much as you can and just using what he has to have.
Here the front bumper is split in half. We attempted to make a fiberglass one a number of years ago. That's why all the holes are taped off. You see the silicone there and stuff. That didn't work out too well. We're just going to clean this thing up and paint it. This whole project is going to be the extreme economy project. You can see that we patched some rust holes, and there's a little bit of Bondo on the other side. These will be patched better because this will be the skin we're going to run. Patch the bumper jack hole as well. It's so rusted, it's like probably half the weight of what it originally was. I know Paul was talking about narrowing it and bringing it in and stuff, but I'm just going to put it back in the stock location just to move the project along. The car needs a ton of work. Really, the car isn't worth anything either, so we don't want to stick money in it or too much time. Got it all wire wheeled down here. You can see where those patches were. A little bit of Bondo there. Those will be filled in with metal. And chrome don't get you home, so I'm going to take the DA with an 80 grit and try and scuff it up some to try to get that primer to stick on there a little better. I've taken the patch off here with a simple grinder. I'm going to open up this hole to some thicker metal so I can weld it easily. And there'll also be a patch made for where the bumper jack would go, and any other holes that would be exposed in the front. Bumper's paper thin. I want to get at least like a 1/16 of an inch thickness so I can weld to it. You get the idea. I think I'm going to treat this bumper with some rusticide at this point. I can't really afford to let it get any thinner because it's already paper thin. And this rusticide, you just wipe it on there, you wait a couple minutes, you rinse it off, and it eats whatever is left of the rust away. There's phosphoric acid in that stuff. It's really nasty. Definitely don't want to get any in your skin or breathe it in. You can see that rusticide turned all that rust into like a darker color. Probably could have left it on there a little longer, but anything's better than what it was. I'm going to repeat that whole process for the top half of this bumper. And this bumper is going to be welded together, and all bracketry is going to be welded on. You want to keep it as light as possible with as little hardware as possible. Hope that primer sticks. Thanks for watching.